Hey, coaches, welcome to Championship Culture. Got a fantastic guest tonight. Rocky Hidalgo is the head football coach at Glynn Academy in Georgia, and he has done a tremendous job. I've kind of seen it from a distance because I used to be down in Georgia, and when I was down there, coach, which has been a long time now, probably 20 years, Glynn Academy was not a strong place. It was a good place to live, but it wasn't a place that had a lot of success on the football field. And then you showed up and changed everything. So, Coach, I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to talk to you and steal your ideas, and I appreciate you being here, buddy.
No problem. I appreciate the invitation.
All right, well, let's jump into it, buddy. Question number one: can you give a 1 minute elevator introduction of yourself?
I've never talked about myself in a minute or less ever. You know, I'm from Denham Springs, Louisiana. I'm fortunate. I've been around great football coaches as long as I've kind of played the game. I played for a guy by the name of Harold Bushwacks in Louisiana High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame. I played at Rhodes College under a guy by the name of Mike Clary. Mike Clary, when I played there, he was like third in the NCAA for career or for active winning percentage behind like Bobby Bowden, and really good Division III football coach. Gave me my first job to be the outside linebacker coach there. In 1996, I realized I couldn't live on a limited earning coaching salary in college and moved to Marietta, Georgia at the time. The Olympics were going on there. I'd never been to Atlanta. That was the place, if you were young and single in the Southeast, you wanted to live. So I moved to Marietta. I worked for a guy by the name of Ed Dudley, Walton High School, coached the offensive line there. I was going to be the next great offensive coordinator, call plays and in my two-back offense and run for 400 yards a night. In 2002, I had the opportunity to become the defensive coordinator. I worked with a great group of guys. I took it on. I kind of had to reverse engineer defense because I'd always focused on a lot of on the offensive side of the ball. So I learned defense. It was almost self-taught. I spent a lot of time talking with people, but the way I absorbed things was kind of a self-taught aspect. I was the defensive coordinator there for 7 years. We won 5 region championships, played in the semis twice, led the region in defense 5 times. 2009, I became the head football coach. Took the Raiders to the state championship game in 2011, the first undefeated season, 10-0 season they'd ever had. 2014, I came down on the coast, and like you said, Glynn Academy didn't have a lot of history since 1964. People called it the Coastal Georgia Golf and Tennis Academy down here is what they called it. They hadn't won a whole lot of games. The guy before me had done a really good job of taking the program and making it respectable. I'm going to give a shout out to Coach Ridings if he sees this. He really did. He took the program. It wasn't much here, and he built them to a program that win 5, 6, 7 games. And we brought in a great group of coaches and been very successful, played in the state championship game. 2015, we won 5 region championships, semifinals, quarterfinal appearances, and just been very fortunate here to have some kids to buy into what we're doing and go win, you know.
You did a great job on that. Now, did I understand this? There 3 playoff wins in about 50 years before you got there?
It wasn't a whole bunch. It was something like that. It was they didn't have a whole lot of playoff success and really survived on beating some lesser teams around here for a long time and struggled against better teams. And we've been fortunate enough to kind of go beat some good teams, go on the road and win some big games up around Atlanta, something they didn't do prior to us getting here.
That's awesome. And I just to ride your coattails, I know when I transitioned to D coordinator, I felt like I got the most growth as a coach I'd ever gotten, going from offense to defense, and it makes you look at the game a little different.
It really did. And I was an offense. I played offensive line. Guys looking at this at home, I wasn't a quarterback. It's hard to tell looking at me, my big ugly mug in here. So everything I did defensively was about attacking offensive linemen. I knew what the things that bothered me as an offensive lineman, and that's kind of what I said, we're going to do that. And I grew into a defensive coordinator, really and truly. Back then it was wing T and 2-back offenses, a lot of run game. And, I had to learn the back end over the course of the years as spread offenses became, more popular. people throwing the ball. I think the big thing that's changed in football is people have done a better job of coaching their quarterbacks. And so, you've had to do a better job on the back end, really knowing what you're doing on the back end, making sure your kids are prepared.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. All right, so let's tonight we're going to be talking about culture and about building programs, which obviously you're an expert at. So question number 2 is, how do you define culture in your program?
To me, culture, and I guess everybody has a different definition of what culture is. Culture is how my players integrate my program's values kind of in their day-to-day behavior. And we talk to our kids, we want them to be good Americans. We want them to be good in the classroom. We want to be good on the street corner, and we want them to be good on the football field. And so how can we take those lessons we try to teach those kids, honesty, integrity, some grit. One of the things, most important thing I like to teach kids, grit. Grit is a skill. And I think culturally, your program, you've got to teach kids to have grit and have toughness, mental toughness, physical toughness. But I think those ideals that you have for your program, how do they reflect those ideals in their behavior and when they deal with other people besides their teammates and coaches? A lot of times kids are great in the locker room. They're great on the practice field. They're great with their coaches. When they get outside of that environment, what are they like when they get out with the general population? And they still reflect my program, our coaches, our teachings, and we want them to go out and be good people, good citizens. And so for us, it's bigger than that football game, which, we try. It's not an easy job and it doesn't work all the time. We have kids that make mistakes and hopefully they learn from them and we can move forward and make the whole community better through our football program.
I think that's the hardest part, is getting your kid. I can get them to live those core principles when they're around us, but getting them to live them in the hallways of the school is like the next big challenge, I think.
Yeah, we can't be around them 24 hours a day, and coaches, and this is probably for a lot of my kids that I deal with, and you and I were speaking before we came on the show. For a lot of my kids we deal with, my football team is essentially inner city school. We have a lot of low income white kids, black kids on the team. I mean, it's not, we have poor black kids, we have poor white kids, poor black kids. We have, kids whose families are in, parents are in substance abuse centers, and people whose, peer or their siblings are in jail. We deal with all of those things with our kids. And so when you do those things, when you deal with those type of kids, you've got to have some flexibility about those things as well, because as a coach, we'd like to think we're having a great impact, but the greatest impact that on these kids' lives are going to be their parents. And a lot of times parents are as big an issue sometimes as the kids' behavior. And we have a lot of great parents that work 2 jobs and care for their kids. And I wouldn't say that we have 90% of our parents are bad parents. I wouldn't even describe it like that. But we have some of our parents that really struggle day to day because of financial issues, just from consistency sometimes. And so we have to do a lot of work. Those kids tend to be our most high maintenance kids that we deal with. So that culture that we talk about building a foundation. Some of our kids start out with just a very porous foundation to begin with. And so we're trying to, it's a patchwork sometimes. I feel like the little Dutch boy sticking my finger in the dike, trying to plug holes one by one. But the other side of that is we have those kids that really take to what we're doing. They embrace our program and, they blossom. And I mean, it makes it all worthwhile. And we have sometimes you have 10 failures for those kids that you have success with. But you got to keep trying. That's just kind of how it is.
I love drop the name of your book that you're writing now. I love the term you used. I never heard it used before, and it's just so dead accurate on what kids are going through sometimes.
Well, we deal with a lot of kids at what I call crisis living. And I'd say that you and I were talking, a good friend of mine, Sean Jackson, and I came up with that term when we were talking about the type of kids that we deal with, and they float from one crisis to another in their life. They very, very seldom have or able to exist in periods of time of just what you and I would think is normalcy, where nothing is going on. There's always an issue in their lives, and sometimes I feel like they only feel comfortable when they have a crisis in their life because they're so used to it. And one of the things I'm working on is a book called Combating Crisis Living, and it's not just for football coaches, but it's so many of us are out there on the front lines every day. We get those kids because they're drawn to football and team sports, not just football, but team sports gives those kids a place to belong. And where, I went home with a mom and dad and I had a family who were there every night. A lot of these kids don't, and their family is their football team and their coaches. And I think, when we look in the mirror, we always think it's about wins and losses. We know it's about more than that. But we get lost in those wins and losses. But, I have to remind myself all the time that, man, we may have to make some sacrifices for these kids because some of them need it. It's bigger than that. And I, there are guys out there who are doing greater work than I am, I'm sure. But it's something that if you look across our country, I think it's an issue for young men, especially. Young men, especially. There are not enough really good male solid role models out there for guys to look up to and follow. And I think it creates those scenarios where kids just bounce from one bad thing to another bad thing. And they get in a situation where they expect bad things to happen.
I tell you, you absolutely nailed it with just the term itself. I think every football coach watching this, as soon as you said that, they pictured the kids that struggle with that, and it's honestly, it's so unfair for the kid. But I even, I've taken some training on, how educating at-risk kids, and they say, like, you can't give them homework because they don't even know where they're staying the night, let alone are going to be able to keep up with homework. And when you think about those kind of kids, they always like their clothes are everywhere. They don't even have their own clothes a lot of times, and it's just
can't find their cleats.
Right.
Can't find their cleats. I mean, who they are. They're the nail. Yeah, they come in the weight room and they don't have a shirt. They don't have. I mean, it is, and it's just one thing. And look, it's hard. I mean, when I had a mom and dad, and my mom got me up in the morning. My dad, they made sure I had breakfast and all those things. We have a lot of kids in this country that don't have that for a variety of reasons, because mom and dad are working two jobs and making ends meet. And they get up and they're latchkey kids, whatever we want to call them. But they need us as coaches. We're there for them. It's not about us. I remind myself all the time, because you can allow that to drag you down and sap your energy. And, what they term an energy vampire, that those situations can become energy vampires because you don't ever feel like you can ever defeat it or ever get past it. But I have to remind myself all the time, I'm not here. It's not about me. It's about these kids I work with, and just kind of, and I don't do a great job with it all the time. Sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes I want to go jump off the Sydney Lanier Bridge because I don't seem to be making any headway on it. But, I always seem to come back and rally back around that. When I have questions about those things, my answer is always, let's go invest myself in the kids. And that I get the fulfillment from that. The time I spend with them, it's about them, regardless of all those other problems.
I think when I first, I was a child of divorce and raised by a single mom, and I thought I had a handle on that type of kid. And then I realized I didn't, that they're facing, it's even worse than that for some of them, when they really don't know where they're staying tonight and if they're having dinner tonight, those kind of things. So man, you really nailed that. And I bet there's a bunch of guys that want to buy your book. So hurry up and finish that thing and we'll get a copy. Question 3. This is nuts and bolts time now, stuff that coaches can steal. What are the 3 best things you do to build culture in your program?
I think the first thing the first thing, you got to state your values. You got to wear those things on your sleeve, whatever. And look, everybody can make a list of the things that they think are, integral to winning football games, to building a program, to their mission statement. However, and, I used to be this big believer in mission statements were stupid. I don't think that way anymore. I think you need to define as coaches what your program is about. What your program's at. Is it just about winning games? What are you trying to do for the kids, for the community? And you need to write those things down. And as I've gotten older, I realize when we get off track a little bit, that can always redirect us back toward our purpose. So, for me, I think it's stating your values. You want to be transparent with your players about what you believe and the things you believe in. You want to tell them why. And so, I coach kids from a variety of different backgrounds. So in mom, they're sitting there, they're eating their Cheerios in the morning, and mom and dad may be telling them something completely different than I am. So how do you combat that? So I think for me is I like to try to explain to my kids why I feel the way I do, why I think this is important. This is the reasons why we do these things. This is what we do and the reasons why we do it. And even if they disagree, maybe we can have a discussion, have some common ground about how learning these traits can pay off for them at some point in time in the future. So I think, talking to them is important. And as coaches, we get busy, we get busy fundraising, trying to hire coaches, scheduling games. And when we struggle, it's because I don't have enough contact with my kids. And because those things where I'm not investing in my kids and letting them know the reasons we do these things, communicating those things to them, that's the big issue. So, I think you have to saturate the environment with ideas. It's like saturation bombing back in the Gulf War when they just went in and bombed everything. Well, the same thing with your kids, whether it's signs, whether it's speeches, whether it's character education. To me, it's behavior. I think the coaches are there, not just to coach the kids. They're there as role models, so I think saturating the environment, you got to hire good coaches, people who are good communicators, people who genuinely care about the kids. And the values, my values are my coaches are just, they're appendages of me, and they've got to reflect those values as well. That's what I mean by saturate the environment. When you walk in our field house, we don't have signs up that say integrity. We don't have signs up. We preach to our kids about doing the right thing. And I don't get bogged down in a bunch of rules. I have 3 rules. It's play fast, have fun, and don't do anything to screw your teammates. Those are my rules I have for the kids, and the kids know. That thing that don't do anything to screw your teammates, that's all encompassing. That's on the field. That's in the parking lot. That's at the McDonald's down the road and in the classroom. And they know those 3 rules. They can repeat them when I ask them. And they know when they've done that. They know when they've hurt their teammates. It doesn't have to be a specific team rule to be on time for meetings. They know when they've done wrong. The kids aren't stupid. So number 1, I'm rolling through these. Number 2, I think is I think you got to have consistency. I think you got to stick to your values, your core beliefs. You got to be consistent when dealing with the players and the parents. Everybody has had a situation where you've got a really good player that has monkeyed something up, has screwed something up, has got in trouble, and you got to make a decision on what are you going to do with him. And what are your rules on how do you deal with those things? You can't treat the kids aren't stupid. I've said that. They know those things. You can't treat the best player differently from the worst player. You really can't. If you do, you're going to blow your torpedo and the opportunity you have to build culture that you really stand for something. I said this, you got to build on a strong foundation. So, what do you believe in? What are those pillars of your program? You can't build a house on weak pillars. So you've got to have consistency. You've got to be firm on those things that you believe in. And I think your coaches, again, go back to the coaches. I think they have to reflect your core beliefs. You can't discipline people. You can't discipline players for being late for an event. And then you have coaches walk in the door 5 minutes late and they get off scot-free. If you want to make sure your kids show up on Friday and wear suit and ties, then you can't have your coaches show up in a pair of sweat shorts and a t-shirt. So to me, those things, you have to be consistent. If I was told this as a coach, that if you want your players to do it, you got to do it. You got to do it as well. If you want your players to believe these things are important, you got to show them that's important. I think it's important for things as simple as a scouting report. I always like my scouting report to be typed up and nice as opposed to handwritten, because it looked professional. And our players saw that, and they saw that I invested my time. I never talked to my players about spending time. I talked to my players about investing time. I talk to them all the time about the difference between spending and investing. When you spend money, it is gone. You never get it back. When you invest in something, you get dividends on that investment for years and years and years. And so I think when we talk about our kids, I don't ever talk to them about spend money and spend time in the weight room, spend some time studying. I never say that. I mean, invest. I talk to our kids all the time. I have a lot of kids at Crisis Living Idea. I have a lot of kids that have a day-to-day, belief structure. They're focused on what's going on now, immediate gratification. So the other side of that is we try to teach them to have a long-term view of things. Invest in your education today and for the opportunity to change your life. I talk to my kids all the time, my poor kids, that you have a chance to change not just your life, but the lives of every person that comes after you. Because if one person in a family goes to college, the likelihood that other people behind them will go increases. And so one kid, if I get one kid to be the first guy to go to college, he can change everybody's life that comes after him. So, and I think setting those examples, showing those guys out there, being consistent with those things, you've got to find those coaches that are gonna follow you, and then other guys who are going to take initiative. Who are going to take initiative and go out there and wear your program's values on their sleeve. The same thing. They're going to be out there out in front. They're going to be in glory when Matthew Broderick says, who's going to be the guy to carry this flag? And the guy raises his hand and says, I will. And he says, when that man falls, who's going to be the guy to pick the flag up and carry the flag? That's the whole thing as a coaching staff. If everybody's not carrying the flag, why the hell would you expect your players to carry it? So everybody's got to do this. We got to pull all in the same direction. So I think having consistency with that is really important. The last thing is, and this is something I learned when I came to Glynn Academy. When I was at Walton High School, super wealthy kid, great kids. They all had moms and dads, and everybody was invested in them and stuff like that. We don't have that with a lot of our kids at Glynn Academy. And I had to learn, the difference. Well, not so much the difference, but I had to learn when to use compassion for a kid and when to use discipline. Sometimes kids need compassion. And as football coaches, we don't talk about those things a bunch. I talk to our kids all the time, love you, and I care about you. I have a lot of kids who don't hear that word very much. Don't hear that word very much. DJ Dallas played for me. He plays for the Seattle Seahawks. And I'll tell you right now, if I talk to him on the phone, I said, man, I love you, man. He'll tell me, I love you too, coach. Those guys, he's not the only one. I've got a lot of those guys who played with me. When I still talk to them, I still interact with them. I tell them those things because they don't know that. And as coaches, I'm as hard-nosed as anybody. And I'm an old screw at the end of the day. But we have to know when to have compassion for these kids, because it's not always their fault. Sometimes kids don't make those decisions in their life. Sometimes parents make those decisions. When a kid shows up late for practice, if a kid's getting driven by mom and mom won't get out of bed to get them there on time, how do you punish that kid? And so talking to people, learning when I need to have compassion for a kid, and when to have discipline. I tend to err on the side of the kid. I do. I don't believe in removing kids from the football team. I had my old boss, Ed Dudley, told me one time, some kids are good for football, but football is good for all kids. I think those kids are better around me. So long as they're not a cancer in my locker room and detrimental to my team, I will advocate to keep them with us. I've had issues where kids have gotten in trouble, and whether it's been my principal or the school system have advocated for removing them from the football team. My argument is always going to be, they're going to be better with me. And there are punishments we can make. Maybe it's playing time, but to me, it's senseless to take a kid who doesn't have a lot of positive influences in his life and remove him from the greatest positive influences that he has. And so my answer to those things are, let us invest more time with him. Maybe he learns his lesson. I think we live in a society where as soon as a kid makes a mistake, especially with athletes, the world wants to throw rocks, push them off the cliff, get rid of them. They want to see them drugged behind their car until it's nothing but a carcass left. They're going to have to go over me to do that. I believe that we're here for these kids, and I think having some compassion for them. That doesn't mean there's not discipline in our program. We're going to discipline our kids, and our kids know sometimes we may have compassion and discipline for them, and there's some understanding there. But I think you've got to talk to kids and understand, if you're not talking with your kids and know the situation that they're living in, it's really hard in a situation like I am. To deal with those kids on a day-to-day basis. You have to have some flexibility as a coach to survive at a place like Glynn Academy. And there are other places around the country. I know guys, I talk to guys all the time who work in them. You have to be flexible. You have to work with these kids sometimes.
Coach, that was some of the best stuff I've heard. I love some kids are good for football, but football is good for all kids. I love that one. And just
I use it all the time, man.
Yeah.
Yep. I stole that, so it wouldn't mind.
It just got stole again. And
yeah.
And the concept of, and I'm a true believer in it too, that hey, this might be the only positive thing going in their whole world. We don't want to remove that from them.
That's right.
I'm the same way, as far as unless they're being cancerous on the team.
Yep.
I don't remove them. They can remove themselves sometimes, but I don't.
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, too many times. Yeah.
All right. Well, man, that was fantastic stuff. I knew you were gonna be a good one to get on here. Question number 4. Now we're both getting a little older now, so this is a good one. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
I've got 3 things here. And one thing, I had this old coach from Morehouse College. When I was a new head coach, I was sitting in my office and I was mad at some kid not doing what he was supposed to do. And I couldn't get through to him. And he's listening to me complain. He looks at me and he says, "Coach, they're never going to love this game as much as you do. That's why you coach." And man, I expected those kids to feel the same way about it like I do. And so this is my job. They do this for fun. And so I think sometimes as coaches, we forget that. So, they're never going to love it as much as us. They're never going to put as much into it as we do. If your kids are putting more into it than you got a problem. You're probably in the wrong profession. So that's the first thing. The other thing I've learned is more is more and better is better, and never the twain shall meet. So a lot of guys get hung up, and I stole that from Trip Allen, who's a longtime friend of mine. But Trip always said it, a lot of people think more is better. More doesn't equal better. More is just more. Better is better. And as coaches, we get hung up on, we're competitive by nature. The guy across town's doing 4 days a week. We want to do 5 days a week. If I have very few skills, I have thick skin. But one of the things I do is I'm able to look at what we do and say, this has bearing on us winning football games, and this doesn't. And so we probably do less as a football team during the summer than 90% of the teams in Georgia, because I'm trying to give my kids time off. I want them to have summers. I want them to go get jobs if they need it. I want them to go on vacation. I want to get on an airplane and go somewhere during the summer. If I have kids that want to take a week off to go sit on the beach and fish, I'm okay with that. So long as they let me know, communicate with me, and they don't do it for 7 weeks straight. So I'm a minimalist when it comes to things like that. And so I try to keep it fun for our kids. I don't try to be overbearing with any of that workload so they can go out and still be teenagers.
Can you talk about your summer schedule a little bit? Just because I'm in the same boat. I like to do less than most people do.
Yeah.
But I still we basically go in July is when we go the month of July. But I'm always feel like I'm behind when we start in July. I'm like, oh, we're behind everybody. What do you?
Yeah, my offensive coordinator goes crazy about putting stuff in, and then we get to the first game, the kids don't know any plays. I don't think they retain anything, or their retention is very, very minimal until you start preparing to play somebody. So that's my thing. We go 3 days a week. That's it. So we go Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And I have considered going Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and every weekend's a 4-day weekend. Honestly, I've considered doing that, and I haven't. I probably will next year. I say it every year. I'm probably going to do that next year. But the kids show up at 8:30. They get a snack at 8:30 because a lot of our kids don't get breakfast. So we make sure we get them some food at 8:30. They go out and we lift and practice, and our conditioning is part of our practice. And so we go from about 8:30 to 11:30, and then we turn them loose. And any of our camp days or any of our 7-on-7 days, we do two team camps. Those are always done on our workout days. They count as workouts. If kids are at a camp, so if they go to the University of Georgia football camp, I count those as their workouts. If they're playing basketball, I count those. If they play, because we have to compromise to get kids out, because we just don't have enough kids that the basketball guys can go play basketball. So if they're playing basketball or baseball, I look at those things and I say, hey, we're going to compromise. You got to compromise on your schedule, but I give them credit for their workout attendance. If they're at a baseball tournament and miss a Thursday workout, and I say, I give them credit for it. So our guys, we have 18 opportunities to work out. I want our guys to make 14 workouts during the summer if they can. And that's 14 workouts, including camp days, AAU basketball, travel baseball, whatever it is. So, and that's it. And so when we start on July 25th, hey, this is the date we start. You got to be here. It's all football all the time moving forward.
I love it. I love the idea, and I love the giving them time to be kids part of it. All right, man, this has been fantastic. Our last one is about contact information, because I'm sure there's going to be guys who want to contact you and ask you questions. You're on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
Man, I couldn't. It's I don't even know. It's at Coach Rock 73, I think is what it is. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. That's and so guys want to email me. I gave you my email. I don't have a problem if you put that in the description down at the bottom. If somebody wants to email me down there, it's my name, rocky.hidalgo@gmail.com. You're welcome to shoot me an email about all those things.
All right. And then tell them a little bit about the book. When we're going to get this book done?
I during my COVID times, I've written 2 books on 3-4 defense. And so I have the first 2 done and edited and ready to go. I'm just about done with the third. I want to have the first 4 to go. I'm a 3-4 guy. I love the 3-4 defense. I want to get the first 4 kind of go together. I want to get all 4 of them together before I put them out there, because they're almost like pieces. And I think if I put them together, they'll be too big. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But I'm hoping probably by June or July, I'll have those things to go out. I've started work on that combating crisis living. I've kind of sketched out when I do those things. I do it by beats, my ideas I want to fill in. And then the other thing that, like everybody else, I've kind of been influenced by guys like you. I'm starting a YouTube channel where it's really not so much as about X's and O's. It's kind of about what you and I are talking about, coaching the Jimmies and the Joes and not the X's and the O's. With the things that we do, like a Monday devotional for coaches. So when you get in the truck, you're on your way to work, you can listen to my big stupid self talk about why we do this. Because I think sometimes a lot of coaches have fallen in the trap that winning is everything. And, there used to be a time there was honor among thieves when in the coaching community. And I want to make sure guys are getting into this business and doing it the right way, coaching with integrity. And there's a brotherhood in this business that I don't want to see ruined because of some of the things that are starting to stir up in it. I'm sure you understand some of those things that I'm talking about, and the drive to win is really important. But I think as men, we have a bigger responsibility to the young men that we coach and deal with every day.
Have you is the channel up and running yet? Is your YouTube up and running yet?
It is not. I've actually filmed my first 3 sessions, but I haven't put it up and everything. I've started working on that end. I've go back and forth. The biggest issue is coming up with the name of the channel, to be honest with you.
That's right.
I've come up with about 3 or 4 of them and go, I don't like that one. And I go back and forth. So I haven't picked one yet. And that's kind of my hang up right now, to be honest with you.
Well, shoot me a text if you come up with it. We'll make sure we're promoting
Will
that
do.
because I know it's going to be a good channel. Just talking to you this little bit of time, you got such great ideas and you see the game in such a great way. Anything else to promote, or just you got the last word? Anything else you want to talk about?
Man, for all you guys out there, look, this profession can be tough sometimes for a variety of reasons. One of the greatest things that I ever started doing was reserving time to spend time with my wife. And guys, get in this. A good woman will keep you in coaching. And if you got a good woman beside you, take care of her. Set out some time, put it on a calendar, set some time out every week for the 2 of you guys to spend some time together and kind of go back and revisit those early days, the honeymoon years, or whatever you want to call it, but spend some time, invest in each other. There's that word again, invest in your relationship with your wife. Because if that's not strong and solid, it'll go into your work environment. You'll take that to work with you, and it'll take away from you as a coach. And so that's the most important thing. I'm a big proponent of that, guys. Take care of that part of your business, because it'll take care of the other part of your business.
That's awesome. And I've seen it the other way too. The wrong wife can
No doubt.
a vice principal pretty quick now. They get you right.
You got to pick the right one. I said, if you got the right one, you got to take care of her.
No. I mean, that's it. If you got a good coaching wife, man, that's gold. You better take care of her.
No doubt.
Because you'll be a vice principal before you know it if you get the wrong one.
True.
Well, Coach, this was fantastic, man. I sure do appreciate you doing this, and you absolutely hit a home run. And looking forward to your 3-4 books and your crisis living book, because your ideas are just phenomenal, and I know you're doing a great job with the kids down there, and you're obviously doing a great job of winning games. So thank you very much for being on here, buddy.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.